Welcome to Pound for Pound ATL, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, I'm Toby D, and y'all know, of course, I got my man JR over there. And today, man, we're gonna continue breaking down this offense. And JR, as I look back at it, man, we've been breaking down a lot of this offense in the off season leading up to this point, man.
Well, it's because of the change and the uncertainty. I mean that's basically what it comes down to for us is that you're running into the first year without a lot of your franchise players,
Yeah,
and we're into the second year of Arthur Smith, who appears to be building more of what he was looking for.
yeah,
As far as the type of team, that happens with all coaches as as the years go on for them. They get in their guys, their players, their style, and so us here at Pound for Pound, we're just trying to decipher what that style and what that means for us.
yeah. And I'm gonna say now before we really get into it, if you guys are watching this for the first time, please subscribe to the channel. We love that, and continue to share, like, comment, because all those things, of course, help us to reach a broader audience and really get the content that JR and I myself put out there. And man, we are literally right around the corner, literally from game day
That's right.
in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So it's definitely exciting to be with you early this morning as we do this thing and talk about what we're going to talk about today is bunch sets.
That's right. That's right. We're going to talk about another trend that we've seen in training camp, in the preseason games, and things that we have noticed that the team is working heavily on, and that is a myriad of different bunch formations. And so we started to ask ourselves, like what does that mean for us? Like, that's something that, as we went back and looked at the film from 2021, there wasn't a ton of bunch formations.
Uh,
There wasn't a lot of that stuff going on, and so this is a new wrinkle, and we have to wonder, like, why are they putting it in? What advantage are they trying to get?
yeah, so I'm going to let you lead it off because this is something you noticed in the OTA when you went to Mercedes-Benz the first time and you saw them doing and incorporating a lot of this. So I'm going to let you hit this thing off with that part of it.
Well, when in early in March, I think it was March that when we went down to Mercedes Benz to see him, that was something that I noticed, is that they were getting into a lot of bunch formation, and the part that was really intriguing to me, they were taking, you know, taking Kyle Pitts and motioning him into a bunch formation with Drake London. And at the time, you also had Auden Tate in there, and we were getting really excited because of the size and what that could mean out of for the running game and stuff like that. Obviously, Auden Tate is no longer on the team, but you still have Drake London and now Brian Edwards. So what I saw a lot of is that when they're motioning into that bunch, they're then running behind it. So you're making a much stronger side of the formation. Like, at the end of the day, that's what football is about on both offense and defense, is getting a numbers advantage. And so how do you go about getting that numbers advantage is what dictates whether you're going to be a successful play caller or not. And so the interesting ways that they have gone about getting into those bunches, getting out of those bunches, was something that was very intriguing to me. And so I started doing a lot more research on that. So what I was looking at in doing my research is, what was the point of the bunch? What are you trying to uh, do, or what are you trying to accomplish other than just a numbers game?
Yeah.
And in reading it, it is something that me and you had talked about. Like, running those bunch formations can make it much easier for the quarterback to understand where his read is going to be.
Right.
And that was, like, number one under the sun, like, point of the bunch formation. And that got me thinking about something you said. You're going from a 14-year veteran to a rookie and a guy who hasn't started in 2 years.
Right.
So doing things like this, making it easier for them to understand where their reads are and where they're going with the ball, is a boon for them.
Yeah.
And then the second one of the second facets that began to understand, as we were looking at it, as we were digging into it, is also aids in the misdirection game, which that
Mm.
is something that Arthur Smith is huge on. From his days in Tennessee, and if y'all caught that the article that Michael Rosenthien wrote, that's really like in his mindset that trying to confuse the defense while giving his quarterback as much information as possible.
Yeah, yeah, and that was a very nice article, by the way. It really gives you more deeper insight into the mind of Arthur Smith too. So I really appreciate Michael Rothstein for putting that article out there, and I'm going to read it again actually because it was actually very intriguing
Yeah, it
reading
was.
and really understanding his background more and how he got to where he is now with calling and being creative as he is, and something Dave Ragone mentioned he realized last year with his creativity in the offense. And just looking at these bunch sets that we're going to talk about and explore a little bit more, like you saying, it helps the reads of the quarterback, making it easier on him to see where he needs to go to football. And it was something I was telling you about the first time I really understood and thought about bunch sets was when Matt Ryan, Dirk Cutter. I know we don't like to say that name a lot because it's kind of like a curse word over here, pound for pound ATL. But it was something that Dirk Cutter implemented into the offense in 2012 when he got here. And I mean, when you got guys like Tony Gonzalez, Harry Douglas, Roddy White, and Julio Jones, and they're running these bunch sets where sometimes you have Tony Gonzalez, out on the other side playing the X
Mm-hmm.
instances, which I think they will do with Kyle Pitts at some point too during the season. And then you got the other guys over in the bunch formation, man. It was very impactful and powerful against other defenses that was hard for them to stop it. And the creativity that Dirk was able to call out of those bunch sets. And so I would imagine this is going to be similar here. And this is something we've seen heavily, especially in the last game with Jaguars. And you were there personally to watch it during this preseason.
Right, and that's okay. So one of the things I want to get into is like one of the major benefits outside of the information that the bunch set gives the quarterback and the easy read that it gives, for the signal caller, the QB of the situation, is that the amount of concepts that you can run out of that bunch and the amount of natural rubs and or picks that it makes. Because when you have the triangle, what we're talking about here, generally you have one guy on the line of scrimmage, two guys further back on, about a yard or so behind them. Depending on which route you're given, generally speaking, either the outside guy or the inside guy is running to the flat, and then your other two are giving you some form of a high-low concept or a scissors concept. But what that's forcing the defense to do is declare how they're going to defend it, and then a lot of times it creates that natural traffic that the defense has to run through, which is something that I've been saying now for a year or so. Since we started really looking into Arthur Smith, is that he really enjoys like making defense run through mud, and
Yeah,
making them run through a whole bunch of bodies and a whole bunch of traffic to then create space for his players.
yeah,
So this first formation that I want to take a look at, oh, wrong formation. Ha. First formation that I want to take a look at. These are both from the same drive, the first touchdown drive of the Jaguars game. We were in a bunch quite a bit, and the one that caught my interest here was this is a 5 wide with a bunch in the middle, and I just thought that was a, normally speaking, when you do the bunch, you're single, you're trying to one-on-one somebody on one side of the formation, and it tends to be the opposite side of the bunch. So the fact that you have the bunch is more condensed down to the formation, and you still have two guys flanking out wide, it
yeah,
just made for a very interesting formation. And on this particular play, Bernhardt, who I believe was the lone guy to the quarterback's left, quarterback's right, made a pretty good gain here. Obviously, we can't clip the whole thing because, for whatever reason, every time we go to clipping things, We get dinged. I would love to show you the whole play, but
Ding ding.
right, exactly. Yeah, we get hit. So I know that the five wide was something that has been part of your like gets your radar up. So what do you think is just like a natural progression of five wide with a bunch set in the middle?
Oh yeah, I mean, I knew 5 wide would be something we were going to carry over from Matt Ryan, and so I knew it was going to be something both of these guys were not going to be able to, neglect. They was going to have to be comfortable in these 5 wide sets. And now that you're throwing bunch in there are other teams that incorporate those bunches in the 5 wide, but you don't see it a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
See us experimenting with it is very unique that Arthur Smith is doing that, especially in the 5 wide and these bunch sets in there. So it shows us really how important these bunch sets are going to be for the Atlanta Falcons into the season. I would be shocked if we don't see that 80% of the time, the whole 17-week season, and maybe we might get lucky and pop up into the playoffs. But I'm just saying, um, but I'm definitely interested to see how this goes. And Ritter actually had a great preseason because of a lot of these bunch sets. He didn't
Right.
throw a lot of interceptions. And so that's already an a credit to what Arthur Smith and his staff, Dave Ragone and Charles London, them are doing to implement things to make it easier on Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder to have success in 2022.
Yeah, there was no. I completely agree with that, and there was something that you brought up before with using Desmond Ritter and the second string to model
Yeah,
model some plays for Mariota and company. And one of the ones that caught my eye was the touchdown grab from Tyler Algier. Now I got it thrown up here on the screen, and initially when they broke huddle, it was another five wide. This time it was a 2-by-3 formation with Tyler Algier out very wide on the edge, and then you had a condensed bunch. Now you're right here on the goal line. I mean, you're at the 2 yard line. Normally, this is where you would like load your line up, get a goal line offense going, get as many big bodies as you can, and just try to pound the rock in there. At least that's what we've seen, Arthur Smith do. But
yeah,
here in this situation, they break huddle and go to a five wide, and then Tyler Algier motions back to standing next to Desmond Ridder. So now you
yeah,
have a shotgun bunch formation, right? And you're like, because of the mobility of Ridder, and then you have Algier standing back there next to him, like the defense ain't got a clue of what's going on here,
yeah,
or as far as like where to key in, because the strength of your formation is now on the left side with that bunch. So you have, four guys, crammed in over there on that bunch set with one of the overhang linebackers, creeping that way.
yeah,
And so what it ends
yeah,
up doing is, you know, forcing a lot of the defensive to be on that side of the ball. And when they snap it and Algier breaks back to where he just came from, that gives Algier one on one with his
yep,
guy. And that's all he has to do is make his guy miss. And which he did. He was able to, make his guy miss and get in and get into the, end zone. But I thought for an end zone play, that was a very creative uh, play by Arthur Smith or Dave Ragone, whoever's drawing it up, because as me and you have both seen, we have the 2018 Chicago book, offensive manual, and there are a ton of bunch
man.
formations in that book that they can be drawing from and pulling from, which they were in favor of because of making trying to make it easier on Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man. Looking through that book, I didn't realize there was so many bunch formations, that, and route concept that you can use here. And
Oh yeah,
that's another beautiful thing about the Falcons offense, right? It's because it still allows your quarterback to run the offense and run the favorite popular concepts that you like to run out of those bunch sets, like the deep corner route that is money for us.
right,
And you can scissor concept that with a post route, right?
right,
And cross both of them together because that's another popular concept. And of course, you got the easy read of the out route that you saw Tyler Algier run on that touchdown. And you will see that sometimes in this incorporated in these bunch sets as well. But you can also run the quick screen game out
Yep.
of these bunch sets. And we saw that a little bit, just a tad bit last year that we did with Cordell Patterson. So it's definitely exciting to see this integrated possibly more than it was in 2021.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks, myself included at times, have been looking at this team trying to take the Tennessee model and copy and paste it over here, right? And one of my bigger wake up calls with that was when, even though they're on the practice squad, the initial 53 didn't have Anthony Ferkser or Michael Pruitt on there. And
Mm-hmm.
it was something that I was relatively shocked about because you were only on the roster, you had three tight ends. And
Right.
two of the three tight ends, one is an undrafted, QB who's switching position, and the other one is another undrafted tight end who is more
Yep.
of a H back slash fullback than he is necessarily a tight end, and that's Parker Heese or Hesse, however you say his last name. And so that got me thinking about it. Like, I think we might be thinking about this all wrong. And what I mean is, up in Tennessee, you had Derrick Henry, you had Janu Smith, and you had Ferguson, but you also
Mm-hmm.
had Corey Davis and AJ Brown. So the focus, your superstar at the time, was Derrick Henry, and that's what you were gearing everything towards, getting Henry open, and getting him on that wide zone and making sure he had blockers out there. Now down here, you obviously don't have Henry. You got Cordell Patterson, you got Damian Williams, and you got Tyler Algier. These are like not the same style backs as Henry. Algier is the closest that you have as far as a physical back, but he's still not the same, kind of back that Henry was. So that got me thinking, like, what are we featuring here, right? Like, what is the game, or what is this particular roster going to be featured? And obviously Kyle Pitts, right? You number 4 overall. You have to continue to justify picking a tight end that high,
Yeah.
and then you follow it back up this year with Drake London. So you're taking, in your first two back to back drafts, you're taking pass catchers very high.
Yeah.
And now, albeit they're physical pass catchers. They're not burners or nothing like that, but it's still, you're having to justify taking those pass catchers that high. So now you take those two guys and you're saying, okay, how can I better, like, feature those two guys in my game plan? And that real good feature is, if you put Kyle Pitts and Drake London, who, because of Kyle Pitts' freak of natureness, can run every route possible.
Yep.
Now you have a bunch of, you know, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and either Cordell Hodge, either Demir Bird, um, maybe even Bastion if he makes it back up, Alameda Zacchaeus.
Yep.
Like, now it's going to be real tough for the defense to key in on who's going where. You
Yeah.
have you have guys who are potentially tendency breakers, and that goes back to that positionless football that Arthur Smith seems to be gearing towards, and in not in love with, but um, enamored by, I guess you
Yeah.
could say.
Yeah, man. And I tell you what, another thing too is about the bunch sets. I like sometimes how they slickly try to make the tight end looks like he's actually setting up blocking, where he sometimes have his hands on his knees or he'll have his elbows on his knees. But he's initially, in most cases, going out on a route. So it's still a bunch set, even though he's crouched over,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to the other two guys that are standing up, because it makes it look like, if the defense is not reading it right, it makes it look like he may be standing in for a block, but he can actually sneak out the back door, like we like to say, and be wide open.
Right.
Nobody is on him, and he's catching the football 30 yards down the field before you know it. And the other thing about that we didn't talk about yet, that's an advantage about these bunch sets, is that if the defense tries to play man on these bunch sets, guess what that makes them liable to do? Possibly lose their guy
Yep.
in running their routes. And so if you see a team defensive trying to play man on man with any of these guys, you about can bet that we're going to win if we're in them bunch sets like that.
Oh yeah, we are definitely like we're daring, teams to go into man. Like because the guys that we have are, contested catch guys, they're man beaters. We're doing everything we can to get our guys one on one. That's what we want because we feel like, our guys are going to beat your guys, especially when our main guy is Kyle Pitts, who you're not going to be able to guard realistically with a tight end or with a corner, or definitely ain't gonna be able to guard him with a linebacker or a safety. Like he's a mismatch nightmare, right? Now and then you take, you run out there, 22 personnel with, two backs, Parker Heath, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and then you start motioning Cordell Patterson out into a bunch. Now you're really forcing, defenses to declare how they see you, how they view, or how they're planning on guarding you.
Yeah,
And that's what, with all the motions and all that stuff, that's what Arthur Smith is trying to do is give his quarterbacks as much information as he can.
yeah, and I'm excited, man, because we didn't see a lot of this with Marcus Mariota in the first team actually doing this. They did it a little bit, but it wasn't as much as we
Right.
saw Desmond Ridder them doing it. And all these formations, and I'm telling you right now, guys, if y'all hadn't had a chance to go back and see some of the other offensive breakdowns that JR and myself did on the Marcus Mariota playbook, the Desmond Ridder playbook, the pistol,
The
uh,
diamond formation stuff.
yeah. If y'all haven't went back and seen that, especially the one where we have building the playbook, where we talked about all the favorite routes that the Falcons like to run and what the wide receivers Brian Edwards and London would bring to that, man, you guys have got to check those videos out. And I would advise you to binge watch today before you get to the game tomorrow.
That's right. I mean, because we're taking what we're able to physically see, whether it be in preseason games or in practice, and then trying to, put together what we think would be a comprehensive idea of what this offense is going to look like. I think they're going to achieve a lot more balance this year. And the one aspect you haven't seen a ton of in these preseason games as of yet is, the quarterbacks pulling the ball
Yeah.
and running. Like that's the one. I feel like that's the one aspect that they're kind of keeping in their pocket, but it's going to be a major part of what they want to do and how they want to continue to extend plays and keep drives going.
Yeah. And one last little tad bit, be on the lookout for some zone read
Yep.
mixed into these bunch formations, especially if you see the defense trying to play man while those guys while the offense is in those formations. Because we saw Marcus Mariota do that a little bit while they were in bunch over there in Las Vegas, and he
Right.
was just gone, you
Yep.
know. So be on the lookout for that.
Exactly. Well, man, I think that's what we got for you today. I think we've not exhausted, but given you the things to look for. Bunch formation, pistol formation, diamond sets, the five wide stuff. I think that what you're going to see this year, not 100% sure if it translates into success yet or not, but I think you're going to see a more fun and exciting brand of Falcons football. It's going
Man,
to more closely resemble, even though after this week that may not be a good comparison, but I think it's going to more closely resemble, the like the Rams and the Chiefs than what we saw last year.
yeah, yeah.
All right, folks.
Man,
Oh, go ahead.
I don't empty the bucket, man. I don't think I have any more that I can throw in that bucket, Doc. It feels good and empty.
Yeah, I think so. I think uh, we've done, I think, a decent enough job of getting everybody ready for the season, and now it's just time to play games and see what we can come away with and see how right and or wrong we were.
That's always a fun part, isn't it?
That's it. All right, Falcons fans, y'all can always, as always, y'all can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Grim1128, GRIMM1128. Toby,
Toby D 1991.
and as always, Falcons fans, rise up.
That's up.